everybody. It's again my great pleasure to welcome you to the In Conversation. Today is the last conversation from our paper series. We're finally going to get to the paper, which maybe we should have started there, but you know, sometimes it doesn't work that way. I'm delighted today we are welcomed by Jim Patterson, who is the founder of Two Rivers Paper, and we're going to hear his story. As you know, the In Conversations is our way to go into the makers and the artist studios to discover their process, to learn their stories, and to find out what makes them get out of bed every morning. So I'm really delighted today to be taking you to Two Rivers Paper and to hear Jim's story. And I can tell you that we are in for a treat because Jim has a lot to say about an amazing career, an amazing story, and an amazing medium. The Heritage Crafts Association, which is a UK organization, has listed Two Rivers Paper on its red list of endangered craft. The company is the only full-time commercial handmade paper maker in the UK. And the mill that we are going to visit is a 400-year-old mill. It's on the Washford River system, which used to have 14 mills in its heyday. And unfortunately now, pit mill is the only one left. Tell us, what made you one day decide that you were going to move into what I think at the time, 30, 40 years ago, was a rather derelict building, and you were going to make it your life project and make handmade artist papers? What prompted that?
Well, I was working in the mainstream industry. I was managing a little commercial mill, didn't belong to me. And the paper industry in the UK was declining. And I felt, what age would I be then? In my 30s. I thought this isn't going to last me my working life, the particular mill that I was working at. I just felt that things were sliding. And so I thought I'll set out and do something on my own. And the last hand mill that was making artist paper in the UK at that time closed then. We're talking about 1986. And I thought it was a craft worth preserving. So I set about, bought a mill and set about doing that. And I have the know-how to be able to do it. I had the know-how to be able to do it. But I have to say, it's taken about 30 years for the business to take off. I've worked jolly hard just to keep the craft alive over those years. And now we're flat out.
Yeah, you were just telling me just before we started that you've been all of a sudden in the last 2 weeks inundated with orders, and you actually have to turn orders away or put them on hold until next year because otherwise you won't be able to supply. Is that right?
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, 2020 has been a very strange year. I decided 3 years ago that I was going to take on some trainee, a trainee and potentially two, and make something of the business, try and expand it. And it's been growing steadily over the last 3 years. But the beginning of 2020, it started to grow exponentially. This is all to do with the internet. It's all to do with what we're doing at the moment, how easy it is to contact people throughout the world. Somebody said Rochester, I think. I've just sent second of two quite large orders out to Rochester Art Store in the States. So yes, things were going well, and then our lockdown started at the end of March, and at the same time we had some exposure on national television, and it's just, I've been flat out ever since. I suppose people are at home more. They're probably they're probably painting. You know, people who do paint are probably leisure painters are probably painting more. But and we had a repeat of the program on Friday, of last week, and I will have to close the web shop, I'm pretty sure, for everything except our Christmas offer, because we're just not going to be able to get the materials out before Christmas. It's not fair to take orders and then and delay too long. So yeah,
It's
great.
a wonderful problem to have.
Yeah, absolutely. But there are only 24 hours in the day. If anybody if stopped making time, it's a very short supply that we have.
So, I mean, everybody, as you mentioned, is talking about craft, and certainly the pandemic and the fact that we are at home, you know, people are making and are trying to keep busy. You have some views on that take on craft. Do you want to share that with us?
Well, yeah, I don't want to offend anybody at all. Yes, I'm a craftsperson. I'm a craftsman. Of course, I work with my hands, producing something. I think you can split craft in. There's three ways of looking at craft. One is that craft can be a self-expression, almost like an art. So people make paper, make it very well, and are very knowledgeable, but they're making it as a form of self-expression. Art objects, if you like, and in other crafts, of course. You can view craft as therapy. You know, people do it because it makes them feel better, and none the worse for that. Jolly good, I say. For me, craft is a job. It provides employment for myself. I'm not quite sure what else I would be doing if I wasn't doing this, and other people as well. So it's a job, and right. That's where I'm coming from anyway.
Right. Okay. So you mentioned that only 3 years ago you decided you were going to try to extend the business. So what have you been doing for the past 35 years? Why has it taken 35 years to what made you suddenly decide you wanted to grow that business?
Well, I could write a book about this, and probably I should, if I had the time. Yes, like any small craft business, the big problem is marketing. You can sell, you can take stuff out and show it, and people will buy it. But you need to be able to place what you make in the marketplace at the right price, the right quality. And in the past, that's involved going through wholesalers, retailers, and there really isn't sufficient margin between what customer will pay for the finished item and what it costs to make it to accommodate anything but a profit for the maker. And of course, what happens is the maker's the one who gets squeezed, like farmers are. They're the primary producer, and they get pushed back. So up until very recently, I've been doing it. I mean, I was a house husband. I suppose Lynn went out to work, and when the kids were growing up, I was looking after them as well. It was a lifestyle thing. I spent about 10 years in, well, part of it in paid employment on a museum project somewhere else, but still keeping this going. But very recently, the internet, it's easy to set up a decent website, and we've got a good story to tell. I'm a shameless Facebooker and Twitter, and we sell all over the world. Victorian, they're attached to it with the solar panels on the roof. That's my home. It's where we brought up 3 boys, and I still live there with my wife today. Is this just a photograph, or is this running through?
No, here we go.
And this is the water wheel, which provides power for a pulping machine. Basically, it pulps up rag, and it's just lovely to watch, and very nice to know that I put that all together and made it work. It's probably the thing I'm most proud of this last couple of years. Now, here we are. This is my colleague Neil. He's feeding sheets of what are called cotton linters. That's cotton that's never been spun, and it's put into a sheet form so that it can be slushed up. There it's going in. We'll be adding a little aqua pellets called size later on and some chalk. It is just a mixer, and it will produce a slush of about, oh, don't put your hand on that, Neil, you naughty boy. Can you hear me, by the way? I was told I needed to speak up.
No,
that's the beating machine, which actually pulps up a rag, real rag, that is. You can see the water wheel through the window there. I'm forming sheets here on a hand mold, sieving wet paper pulp into an even sheet. I've just put some vacuum on there and removing the decal. That decal is German for lid, and it holds the pulp in place while the sheet is formed. That's inverted and couched, from the French coucher to lay, onto a cloth covered, a wool covered board. And there we are, that's the wet sheet. That will be subsequently pressed. And here is my other trainee, Kieran, who's putting the wet sheets onto blotters and interleaving with corrugated cardboard and dropping them into a drying box where air will be pushed through the flutes and the paper will be dry in the morning, nice and flat and nice and even. I wish it worked as fast as that, but there we are. Now, after those sheets are dried, they're dipped in gelatin, and this is Zoe, our Queen Elizabeth Scholarship Trust apprentice, dipping sheets in animal glue, warm animal glue, and stacking them where they'll be pressed again, and finally hung up to dry on ball racks in the loft of the mill. And at that stage, the paper is ready to sell. And done it look lovely.
Fabulous. So you have some, so there are lots of steps to that. Where do you get the supplies from, the rags and can you talk to us a little bit about the rags a little bit more?
I can, yes. The linters, the cotton linters that you saw being put into the mixer, I get them from a larger paper mill. I actually get them from St Cuthbert's paper mill. I buy them from St Cuthbert's paper mill, who make Bockingford and Saunders Waterford and Somerset printmaking paper. It's an industrial, it's a byproduct in a way, because it's the short fibers that don't go for spinning. They make a relatively weak sheet. Was never happy about just using linters. So we pulp real rag, linen, which is quite difficult to get a hold of and sometimes I actually buy loom lengths of linen and cut it up and pulp it to enhance the sheet. But we do get linen from a little fashion house in Glastonbury, and they will sell us. They give us their offcuts. We try and get white if we can, but we will bleach if we've only got colour to put in.
And what makes a rag unacceptable? I mean, we hear that the fashion industry is producing more, garbage and textile garbage than we can handle. So I'm assuming you can't use any of the synthetic fabrics and all that, but can you use any type of cotton rag?
You can use virtually any type of cotton rag, but really until recently, we put in the water wheel in the year 2000, and it ran for about 5 or 6 years. And we've just recently, I've just recently reinstalled it, reinstated it, got it going again after a spell of 10, 15 years where it wasn't working. That gives us sufficient power to be able to pulp cotton waste. But I'm dedicating that really at the moment to linen, which gives, people think cotton makes strong paper. It actually doesn't make wood pulp would make stronger paper than cotton. Cotton is a long-lasting paper, but linen gives the paper strength, and it's difficult for commercial paper mills to get sufficient good quality linen. They don't have the equipment to break it down. So it just gives us a little bit of a, well, it just gives us a big edge over industrially produced material. But I would like to use more recovered rag, but we live in an area where there isn't a textile industry.
Right. So, and the steps, we saw that there are many steps. And how long? So one of the things I wanted to ask is, how do you determine the thickness of the sheet? Is it when you take it out with your tray, you take it out from the sink there? You have different trays with different thickness, or how does that work?
No, no, it has nothing to do with the mold. The weight of the grammage of the paper, the poundage, if you work in artists' pounds, is determined by the ratio of fibre to water in the vat. So if you want to make a thicker paper, a heavier paper, you have a thicker mix that you're pulling the sheet from, and then you have to replace with the equivalent amount of pulp the pulp that you've taken out when you make a sheet. So it's done by calculation. You put back into the vat the correct amount of pulp or the weight of paper that you should when you pull the sheet out on the mold. And the trick is to keep the same action every time. You can vary the weight by dipping and pulling slower. You make a heavier sheet that way. You can make a lighter sheet by casting the excess off. But what you want to do is the same thing every time, which you can't because we're human. But you want to try and do the same thing every time and just add the correct amount of pulp back into the vat, mix it up with water, so you're keeping an even grammage.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and from a tactile point of view, how do you judge that it's a nice, I mean, I know that perfect doesn't belong to your world.
No,
and
it doesn't.
Imperfection is your badge of honor.
We sell imperfection. That's if you want perfect paper, get something made by a computer.
But you have your certain standard of quality, and you say you make the most beautiful paper, artist paper in the world. So how do you judge it? Is it the touch? Is there a scent? Is there weight? How do you know that you are happy with the product that comes out? Well, at the end of the day, you can only paint on it to say whether it's right. But I can feel it. It's the handle of the paper. It's its stiffness. It's the feel. You know when the sizing's right. That's to say the surface sizing's right. When you run your finger, when I run my thumb across it, I will. Well, every day I go up and say, "This is fantastic paper." No, I will pick up a batch of paper and think, "Okay, that's a good sheet," and I can't quantify it really. I just know it is. Smell, no, that's got nothing to do with it. Sight doesn't have a lot to do with it either. No, it's something to do with the feel, the handle of it. Okay, so you do your paper is for painters, artists, and I think that you're going to show us how the paper changes at different stages, and you're going to show that to us with by putting the paint on it. I'll try and do that. I hope it's going to work. I mean, I would feel much more confident if I was doing this to people who were there. But there we go. Yeah, I think there are only two things that are of real importance when you're producing
a watercolor or a paper to be painted on. One of them is what you see when you look at it, because the paper is going to be part of the picture. Watercolor is ever such a thin film of next to nothing, and the paper is part of the finished picture. So what you see is quite important. One paper might suit one artist and the same paper not another, but the real thing is how absorbent, how it takes the paint. So if you make paper which is just cotton, no chemical additives, nothing at all, it is totally absorbent. And if I just reach across this, crikey.
Yeah.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Can you see that? Yeah, okay. That's just cotton. And if you put paint on it, it just goes straight. I should have held the brush. It just goes straight into the sheet. Bingo. Right. Totally absorbed. That's it. And it's what, if you put another color onto it, I've got another, where's my brush gone? I've dropped it on the floor, haven't I? If you put another color onto it, it will, there's my fingers, it will just go to mud. It will be dead.
Right.
And it's what it's what painters call mud when it does that. So you have to modify that sheet somehow or other so it will hold out water. Nowadays, we put into the mix an industrial chemical. It's called alkyl ketene dimer, acid-free size, and it's a wax. And we put on rather a lot, and this is where I hope it's going to work. And can you hold it up? Can you see that? Can you see it's retreated away from the line of the brush?
Yes.
Perhaps I can. Can I do it back to front? No, I can't do it yet.
Can you bring it up? Yep. Here we go.
Is that working? Can you see it's balling? It's balling up on the surface of the paper. That's now. If you look at the two, I've made a right mess of those. If you look at those two pieces of,
can you bring it up a bit? Just bring it up.
Can you see it? Yeah.
Here we go. Yes.
I can't see myself. You'll see one is very much brighter than the other.
Yeah.
So the paper that's unsized will have no reflectance. It will have no life at all. But you couldn't paint on this sheet because it's pushing the paint away. It'd be very difficult to work on it. And that's why we gelatin size. So that's the final stage. And yes, it's animal gelatin. No, nothing else. Nothing else works. Or nothing else works as well as animal gelatin. Crikey, this is difficult to do this back to front. Now, if I put that on, yeah, it's going completely and evenly onto the surface.
Right.
It takes the paint, and that is really largely on the surface of the paper. It's the sizing, the internal sizing is.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, the internal sizing is preventing the paint sinking in, and the gelatin is allowing it to take. The gelatin strengthens the surface of the sheet. And why have I not got? Oh, I had it easily to hand. And the beauty of producing a sheet like this in this way is that you can put another color on. I'm not going to do that now, but you can put another color on, and the colors commingle, they fizz on the surface. But if you don't like what you've done, you can I see it? You can take this off. So basically, you can wash this pretty much back to nothing.
All right.
So you can correct, you can lift the color, and not because the gelatin has strengthened the surface, you're not damaging the surface, and you can paint back on top of that.
Right.
So you can paint in and out of the surface, and it's how all watercolored paper used to be But now it's produced industrially. It's much softer, weaker, and you really can't achieve these effects. Even, well, Arsh is a very good paper, but it won't be as well sized as what we make.
So you make the Rolls Royce of...
just because they could do it. There's nothing magic about it. There's nothing technically impossible about it. It's just we're in a different market. We're producing a different product.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you clearly have a very special product and a product that is in high demand. What does it mean for you from a business point of view? I mean, even though you have more orders than you can cope with right now, I mean, you are a fragile business because you are a very small business, and it takes investment and it takes financial support to grow or to be sustainable in the long term. You explained that at the beginning. What does the fact that you are on the endangered list of crafts mean to you? Does it mean that the government might come or some organization might come and help you, or it has had no effect? It's just a nice thing that the craft world is doing to you, but it really means nothing for your bottom line.
Well, it has done something for our bottom line. Yes, of course it has. It's through the Heritage Crafts Association. I've had some decent publicity. I mean, they made me Craftsman of the Year last year, and we got the Made in Britain award this year, which there's a small cash for both of those. There was a small cash award, not the difference between surviving or not, you know. But the recognition cascades down, cascades out from the business, so that's good. There's no government support for craft. No, I mean that, and in a way that's right. There shouldn't be public money for private gain. The occupation has to stand on its own, and it is at the moment, which and I hope, I fully intend that it will be, will carry on being. But there has been help through the Heritage Crafts and the charities that support the HCA in training. And I can't, obviously I can't have the business continue beyond my time unless we train young people, have some trained young people. So I've got Zoe, who's in her early 20s, and Kieran, who's been with us a couple of months, sorry now, who I'm training and putting through technical courses outside the business, both of them. And I get some grant money through the HCA for that. But no, there's nothing, just nothing outside the business. It has to support itself.
Right. So that's a great segue to the second part of this conversation, which I wanted to have with you. It's about the future of Two Rivers Paper. And you have a very unique approach and a very unique plan to make sure that it carries on. I mean, the mill, as you said, is your life story. It defined everything. It's the common thread throughout your life. And you indicated that you probably would be the last person working in it, but you want the business to carry on. So can you tell us how you envisage to do that?
Well, very soon I'll be 74 years old. So I've had my 70 years and 10, and I will carry on making paper as long as I'm fit and able to do so, and people want me to make it. That's fine. But whoever comes, I mean, I have 3 sons, and they all have good jobs, well-paid jobs outside of this. They're not going to want to take this on. And I have employees, and I think it's only fair to them, they're stakeholders in the business, that they should take over the business after I no longer I'm able to run it, but they won't be able to take it over here because this property will, in a few years' time, will, I'm quite sure, be sold, and it will be sold not as a paper mill, but as a rather interesting building in a national park. So, you know, so I decided about 18 months ago that we look for other premises, and in the nearby town of Watchet, which had its own large paper mill until a couple of years ago, a regeneration collective were proposing having an arts centre, I suppose, an arts centre new build on what was an little industrial port, and that's going ahead. So at the moment, the centre is going up, and we will be tenants in, I suppose, about a third of the footprint of the building, making paper there. Public will be able to see us making paper there. We will carry on making paper at Pit Mill, but we will be making paper down at Watchet, and that is where the business will be eventually its heart and home. And once that's set up and running, my intention has always been to hand the business over to the people who are working in it, form a partnership, and they can have it. It's not worth a huge amount. The equipment and everything's not worth a huge amount. I could sell the name, I guess. I could sell the brand. If I sold the brand, it wouldn't be Two Rivers paper. It would be Two Rivers made at St Cuthbert's, I guess, or another European mill. So I won't be doing that. They will carry on for as long as they want to carry on. I hope they want to do this the same way as I'm doing it. They may want to do something different. That's for the future.
I mean, it's an extraordinary thing to do, to give an entire life labor to, you know, I mean, people you've been working with, but people who are not related to you, or, you know, it's an extraordinary a gesture of trust too.
I mean, I can't take it with me. Not where I'm going. No, I can't take it with me. And my family don't want it. I mean, don't need it, don't want it. No, it seems a natural, logical thing to do. I'm touched by how altruistic you think I am. But our customers want the stuff to be made, and my guys want to make it, so that's the way it's going to be.
Right. And I mean, it's encouraging to hear that you were able to recruit apprentices and form, you know, new paper makers. Is there a lot of interest from the younger generation to get into crafts? Or, I mean, I know that the UK has a lot of organizations and schools. They think they don't, but compared to what we have in Canada, for example, there's a lot of a great structure. It's very organized. There are schools. There's organizations such as Quest that your apprentice Zoe is being sponsored by, and we had someone from Quest 2 weeks ago who shared with us what the organization does. And I know that on the call, we have Sue Blackwell and Gemma Gunning, who are also Quest scholars. So there are people to form and to train and to pass on the skill.
Well, yes, obviously, I've got two really good guys,
Right.
and you know, that's. How easy is it? How easy was that? I found it very difficult when I was trying to take on Zoe, because HCA, Heritage Crafts, were trying to recruit for me on my behalf through the colleges, and particularly our local Bridgewater College, which is very close to Hinkley Point, at the time as I was looking for somebody to go into a formal apprenticeship, an paper industry backed apprenticeship. But at the time I was looking for such a person, they would only be providing the college input for one person, and they were they were totally focused on the new Hinkley Point, the nuclear power station just down the road from them, and they weren't encouraging anybody to take up the offer.
Right.
But Zoe, it just suited Zoe. She wanted to do something that was hands-on. She couldn't bear the thought of doing another 3 years of book learning, of classroom work. So she was hoovered in. Now Kieran's a different kettle of kippers. Kieran is living very close to here, just down the road. Visited this during an open studios a year ago, just over a year ago, and was fascinated by that whole thing. And he's sort of been knocking on the door ever since. He was working with a Thatcher when it became obvious that we had far too much work. We needed another pair of hands. So he was there, but I would have to say he's probably even more keen than Zoe. I mean, he's just constantly asking me questions. So
that's fantastic.
That's fine. But you know,
yeah. So you have these new bloods. You have the new project of the new location, and you also have a new product. You've developed this seed paper that I don't know if it's a photo from one of your papers that I saw, but I saw a sheet of paper with plants sprouting from it, which I thought was quite remarkable.
Yes. Well, I would say there is nothing new under the sun, is there? There's always. Have I got a piece? I thought I've got a piece. I probably. Yeah. What's here? Is this there? Yeah. Here we go. Is the focus good enough to actually see that?
Yeah, we can see the little marks. Yes, those are the seeds.
Well, that's seeds, yes. There is nothing new under the sun. It's not something I invented, that's for sure. But I've worked on it over the years, and there are tricks to doing it, which means that the seeds are more viable than they otherwise would be in sort of normal paper making procedures. And again, this is something which has taken off in quite a big way. We used to get occasional jobs. I had a couple of companies who bought the stuff for making little tokens to attach to bouquets of flowers, and floral tributes are apparently quite popular in the funeral trade. We also do papers with petals here. Again, I don't know whether that's. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. What kind of flowers do you use?
That's cornflower, marigolds, and larkspur. Right. Are the three that we do we make it regularly? We make it fairly frequently. It's not what the business is built on. They're novelty papers, but at the moment we're having a huge interest in the seed papers, and I've set up a second mini mill, if you like, in an outbuilding, solely to make those, because it doesn't really mix making watercolor paper and then making a batch of seed papers, because you have to clean everything up and they persist, and petals, you make a sheet of paper 3 weeks later and it's got a larkspur petal in it.
Right.
So we've got a separate line doing that, and we're flat out on that. I've turned business away this week for that.
Right. We have a question, and you kind of just answered it. What's your best-selling paper?
Oh, the best-selling paper is £300. That's 630 GSM. So heavyweight, in quarter imperial. It's 11 inches by 15. If you're still in old money, we sell more of that than we do any other single paper. But we make paper in all sorts of weights. I mean, we can make paper down. What have I got here? It's on the table. I really wanted to show. I didn't actually want to show you this. I've lost my props. I've lost my props. Where's my props? We make paper up to. That's stupid. It's also so gloomy here. I can't say anything. Is it behind me? Oh no, I'll find it in a moment. It's too. Yeah, we make paper up to 1500 GSM, 1500 GSM, which is a solid board. And we occasionally make paper down paper weights, 90 GSM. So we do a wide range of papers, but we sell more £300 watercolor paper, which is this stuff in this size.
We have quite a few artists on the call, so I'm sure they'll be interested.
I've seen it. I don't know. But yeah. Well, any other questions?
Well, I think we have, no, Kate says thank you. I don't see any other questions here. Jim, thank you so very much. It's been a real pleasure. Absolutely, we're coming to visit you when we come next to the UK on our trip. It's going to be a real delight.
We'll hang out the flags.
Thank you. I'd like to share with everybody. This is our last series in the paper, but before we go, I wanted to share with you my screen and share. We have just published the gift guide. And the image that you can see here on the cover is by a paper artist, a Canadian one from Vancouver. Her name is Rachel Ash. And the gift book will share with you work. We have another paper artist here. This is Justin Smith. She works with banknotes. And I really wanted this book to be about the artist. So when you flip through it, it will take you straight to the artist's website. We have glass, we have paper. Here we have ceramic, paper again, that's the same artist from Vancouver. Leather jewelry and sewing for those who have done some of the embroidery classes before. Another ceramic here, maybe you remember I interviewed Judy McKenzie when I was in London. Glass, paper. There's a great puzzle here that you can gift easily, made from banknotes, and then one or two little things from Rue Pigalle. So I just wanted to share that with you. You can see it on the website. I'm going to put it in the newsletter, and I hope that you will go through it and maybe do your little Christmas shopping supporting the artists. The artists get 100% of the sales. So it's really in support of them. So thank you so very much, everybody. I will see you next week. We're starting next week the time series, and it's not quite on the website yet because I've been chasing my tail a bit this week. But we're starting with the history of the clocks of the British Museum Wednesday next week. So I hope that I'll see you then. Jim, thank you again. And have a great week.